With Murph being this weekend, I wanted to talk about what CrossFit has taught me over the years about my own hormone health. Over the past year, CrossFit has been in and out of the news, whether it is an athlete who passed away, unfortunately, during the games last summer, or with the athletes retiring, getting pregnant, etc., this year. It's caused me to kind of have a flashback or like really reflect on what CrossFit taught me and how it changed my body and my life over the years. Say what you want about CrossFit. I know that there's a lot of people who do not love CrossFit, but I'm just here to talk about my experience and what it did with my hormones personally. So I started doing CrossFit when I worked at a large corporate gym. I was just looking for more of that community piece as well as to try something new, something that would challenge my body. And in those days, CrossFit was the it thing for my gym that I went to. It was one of those things where at any given moment, you could see an athlete doing a Metcon or a group class lifting together and doing a Metcon. There were days where all of the trainers would get together and do like a mini competition. People were training for competitions. It was really just a huge supportive environment. It was fun, it was challenging, it was something new. And the ex-athlete in me from my basketball days really loved having that community, that team support. Even if you were competing against somebody, you were still cheering them on and really wanted the best for everyone. And I loved it. You could not stop me from talking about CrossFit, which of course is always the joke of like, if how do you know somebody does CrossFit? It's because they talk about it. You couldn't stop me from talking about it. I was watching the videos, I was reading all of the athletes' books, I was watching things on YouTube, etc. I just really loved the community. On top of that, I started coaching a class at the gym to help teach these athletes how to do Olympic weightlifting, how to do the Metcons. And I just loved the community. I loved the atmosphere. And a few years into being a CrossFit athlete, I realized that my hormones were kind of like starting to show a couple signs that maybe this was not the actual sport for me. One of the interesting things about women who do have hormonal imbalances is we do have hypermobility, meaning we are very, very flexible. So yes, of course, I had a little bit of like a creaky shoulder. I had dislocated my shoulder in the past, but I was able to really use mobility, strengthen it, and I could safely do CrossFit. But when it came to my hypermobility, I was not expecting this to happen. I was doing a snatch and I felt something very painful in my core. And I didn't know what it was. And I immediately just like knew I could not continue doing this workout. I remember the workout specifically. I was doing snatches, there were kettlebell swings, and there were burpees. And I did a snatch. I felt this thing and I went on to doing kettlebell swings, but I could not do the swings. And so I went on to the burpees and I just immediately fell to the floor and started crying. I did not know why, but all of a sudden my side just was hurting so bad. I had never felt anything like it. I had a client who worked at a physical therapist office and she was like, come in, I can get you in. We can have somebody look at it, see what it is. And so I went in and I was like, here's what I was doing. Can you help me? And he was like, you know what? I think it is an intercostal strain, which is the intercostals are the teeny little muscles. They kind of look like whale teeth that are in between each of your ribs. And I was like, okay. And so I started treating it as if it was an intercostal strain. And I was still coaching at the time. I was still a personal trainer and I just could not do any movements. It was very embarrassing. I couldn't raise my hands more than like shoulder length. I couldn't do any core exercises. Demonstrating any type of movement was just nearly impossible. I was embarrassed. I was also taking some Pilates classes at that time to help with my core strength. And I felt like I couldn't do anything. It was just very frustrating and I did not know what was going on. And after months of this continuing to happen, I was like, something is seriously wrong. I don't know if it is an intercostal strain because I thought this was supposed to kind of start getting better over time and it just was getting worse. It was to the point where I'd be laying in bed on one side and I couldn't roll over naturally to the other side. I had to physically sit up and like place myself onto the other side. I had a hard time laying on my right side. I did not know what was going on. On top of that, I started getting kind of sciatic pain. My hip was really painful. I was getting sciatic pain down my right legs, and it just was like, what is going on? So I went to another physical therapist who was highly recommended by all of my coworkers. And the second I saw her, she was kind of like, running a couple tests on me, and she was like, "Did you know that you tore your ab?" And I was like, well, they said it was an intercostal strain. And she goes, no, I can feel the scar tissue. And she started listing off, did you feel like this? Did you feel like that? Or do you have trouble? Did you have trouble like lifting your arm? Did you have trouble turning over, etc.? She kept listing these symptoms off that I had been living with for months. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And she was like, that is your ab tear. So she did a couple of things to help calm down the sciatica. And then she was like, you need to go in and let's get a scan to see what's going on because I think I have some suspicions of things that are going on inside of your body. I was like, okay, cool. So I go in, and because of my ab tear, my whole right side of my abs were just kind of shut off, which caused my hip to overreact and come up. It was really, really mad. And that's what caused the sciatica. Meanwhile, the other set of abs was like working overtime to keep me balanced and stable, and it started pulling my spine to the left, giving me scoliosis. So just from one misdiagnosis, I all of a sudden had this slew of issues, and I was like, great. So I did everything my PT told me to. I dry needled with her. I did cupping. I did all of my stretches. I did all of my activations. And over time, I was able to get back to the workouts that I really enjoyed. I was able to start doing CrossFit again, start doing the high intensity without pain. And I was back to loving it. Looking back, my mindset kind of changed a little bit just because I did not want to be that injured. I never want to put myself into a place of injury, but I didn't notice it at the time. That is, I still wanted to really grasp onto that high intensity, that like feeling of community. And I still loved it, and I was still coaching it, and I loved having that community around me. However, my CrossFit days came to an end when I was diagnosed with PCOS and endometriosis. The reason being was that I was not able to bring my heart rate up anymore. I didn't want to do that because it was spiking other things like my cortisol imbalances. My PCOS is an adrenal PCOS, and I was advised to keep my heart rate lower, don't bring it up. And if you keep bringing it up, then it's going to be a problem. So I had climbed back from this ab tear, from this injury. I had really worked on getting back into it. And next thing I knew, I was being told, yeah, CrossFit maybe isn't your thing because you already have high cortisol. It's impacting your adrenals, and it's causing the PCOS and endometriosis symptoms to get worse. I was basically forced to slow down, and there was no way. I tried early on in my PCOS days, I tried to do a couple workouts that they just couldn't work for me anymore. My heart rate would skyrocket. I was just not able to do them and keep within the areas that I was motivated to be in because I wanted to feel better. I didn't want to have these PCOS and endometriosis symptoms running my life anymore. And this was the time in my life that I really started to understand that fitness can either deplete our hormones or nourish our hormones. And my relationship with CrossFit, and looking back, my relationship with a lot of things that I have done in the past was more on the depletion scale. I was just go, go, go. I loved it so much. I didn't want to take a day off. I loved the high intensity. I loved the heavy lifting. I loved talking about it. I loved coaching it. But it was depleting me. It wasn't nourishing me anymore. It was causing more hormonal symptoms over time, whether that was my bloating after the workouts that I had to deal with for the rest of my shift, whether that was struggling to sleep at night and being wide awake at 2 a.m. just staring at the ceiling, whether that was the acne breakouts, the really heavy periods, whether that was just feeling so stressed and so exhausted at all times. I just knew I was very resistant to giving up CrossFit because of how much of that community it brought me. But I knew that if I didn't give it up, I was just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And my ab tear would probably only be like the start of my injuries that started to happen because of CrossFit. In 2019, I gave up CrossFit to focus on my PCOS and endometriosis symptoms. And a couple of years ago, I decided to try out CrossFit again, just because I was like, you know what? We have the symptoms managed. We feel really good. I'm lifting heavy. Let's see how it goes. And pretty much immediately, my hormonal symptoms returned, symptoms that I hadn't been experiencing for years. I was bloated again. I was breaking out again. My period symptoms got worse. I was wide awake in the middle of the night, just staring at the ceiling. And for me, I look back on it and I just was like, this isn't worth it for me because I've done so much hard work on myself and my hormones to feel really good in my skin. I don't want one workout that I actually really enjoy to impact all of that stuff negatively and bring me back to a place where I was feeling very unmanaged, very depleted, and very frustrated on living in my body and understanding what was going on. With Murph coming up this weekend, if you participate in Murph, just make sure you are fueling your body, make sure you are hydrating, make sure you are recovering, all of the things. Please do all of the things and enjoy yourself doing Murph. If you have hormonal symptoms, my recommendation would be maybe sit Murph out, cheer your friends on, or do some type of modified Murph. And I will drop that in the caption below of what a modified Murph could look like with hormonal symptoms. But ideally, you are taking time to nourish your body to make sure your hormones aren't feeling super depleted. And if something like Murph, a higher intensity workout like CrossFit, is depleting you, is causing symptoms, it is likely a sign from your body that it is not the workout for you at this time. And I know it is very hard to sit out, especially when that community is such a beautiful community, cheering each other on, being competitive. It is very hard to sit it out, but for your well-being, I am begging you, sit it out, cheer them on, modify if you need to, and please listen to your body because you deserve to feel amazing in your skin. So I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever pushed through a workout just because you wanted to do it, but then you ended up feeling worse? Let me know in the comments. And that is all I have for you on Hormone Happy Hour. I will chat with you next time. Cheers.